There comes a moment in every life when the heart grows tired. Not tired from working hard or from loving deeply or from giving generously, but tired from carrying what was never meant to be carried. Tired from bending beneath the weight of what was never supposed to rest on these shoulders. Tired from the quiet, invisible labor of enduring what the spirit knows is wrong, while the mind keeps making excuses and the heart keeps hoping that things will somehow change. There comes a moment when something inside you shifts, when the noise of other people's expectations grows quieter and the voice of your own truth grows louder. When the part of you that has been whispering for years finally finds the courage to speak above a whisper. When your soul stops asking permission to be protected and simply says enough. And it is in that moment, that sacred and terrifying moment, that everything in your life has the potential to change. Because the life you were meant to live cannot be lived in the presence of what destroys you. The person you were meant to become cannot emerge in an environment that constantly diminishes you. The dreams you carry in the quiet places of your heart cannot grow in soil that has been poisoned by toxicity, by control, by manipulation, by the repeated, relentless disregard of your worth as a human being. And here is the truth that nobody wants to say plainly, but that every wounded heart already knows. Sometimes the people who harm us most are not strangers. They are not enemies. They are not people we can easily point to and name as dangerous. Sometimes the people who do the deepest damage to our sense of self, our peace, our joy, our future, are the people closest to us. The people who share our name, who sit at our table, who have known us the longest, who we love the most, family. And the world will tell you that because they are family, you must endure. That because they are blood, you must absorb. That because they have known you since the beginning, they have the right to wound you indefinitely. But I want to offer you something different today. Not rebellion, not bitterness, not the cold decision to cut everyone out and disappear, but truth. Gentle, necessary, life-changing truth. The truth that love is not a license to harm, the truth that closeness is not permission to wound. The truth that a title, whether parent or sibling or cousin or partner, does not cleanse toxic behavior of its toxicity. And the truth that you were born with a spirit that deserves to be treated with care, with dignity, with genuine love. Not just in theory, not just in words, but in the daily lived reality of how the people in your life actually treat you. You teach the world how to love you by what you allow. You teach the people around you what is acceptable by what you tolerate without objection. And the moment you begin to draw the line, the moment you decide that certain behaviors will no longer be permitted in the space of your life, something powerful happens. Not just in your relationships, but inside you, in the way you see yourself, in the way you stand, in the way you speak, in the way you move through the world. Because boundaries are not walls. They are not cold or unloving or selfish. Boundaries are the outward expression of an inward truth. The truth that you matter, that your peace matters, that your well-being is not a luxury that can be sacrificed on the altar of other people's dysfunction. Today we are going to talk about 6 toxic behaviors that you should never tolerate. Not from strangers, not from friends, not from partners, and not even from family. We are going to talk about them honestly, deeply, and with the kind of clarity that I hope reaches the part of you that has been waiting for permission to finally choose yourself. Number 1, never tolerate someone who never apologizes. An apology is never just a collection of words. It is never simply the mechanical stringing together of 2 syllables followed by a sentence of explanation. A genuine apology is something far more profound, far more human, far more necessary. It is the moment when one person looks across the space of hurt they have created and says, I see you. I see what I did. I see the impact it had. And I care enough about you and about what we are to acknowledge it honestly, to take responsibility for it fully, and to do what I can to repair what was broken. When someone consistently refuses to apologize, they are communicating something very specific, not just in the moment of conflict, but about the entire nature of the relationship. They are saying that their pride is more valuable to them than your peace. They are saying that being right matters more to them than being loving. They are saying that the relationship, as important as it might claim to be to them, is not important enough to require their humility. And over time, those unspoken apologies accumulate like unpaid debts, each one adding weight to a foundation that was built to carry something lighter. There are people who have lived their entire lives inside the belief that apologizing makes them weak. They grew up in environments where admitting fault was seen as vulnerability, and vulnerability was seen as danger, where being wrong meant being inferior, and being inferior meant being at risk. And so they learned to never concede, to never acknowledge, to never bow. And they carried that survival strategy out of the environment that created it and into every relationship they formed afterward, using the same armor they built for protection as a weapon against the people who love them. But here is what they do not understand. The refusal to apologize does not protect them. It isolates them. Every relationship they inhabit grows gradually colder because the people who once offered their warmth freely learn, slowly and painfully, that their pain does not register, that their hurt is not met with care, that they can bleed in front of this person and receive not a bandage, but a lecture about why they should not have been bleeding in the first place. And the person on the receiving end of that pattern begins to change, not all at once, but quietly, in small and significant ways. They begin to swallow their feelings before expressing them. They begin to shrink their expectations to avoid the disappointment of unmet needs. They begin to question whether their pain is valid, whether their feelings are real, whether perhaps they are the problem after all. This is the most insidious damage caused by someone who never apologizes. Not just the original wound, but the story about that wound that their silence plants in your mind. The story that says your feelings are too much, your needs are unreasonable, your hurt is your own invention. But your feelings are real. Your hurt is valid. Your need for acknowledgement is not weakness, it is humanity. And any relationship, any genuine, healthy, loving relationship must have accountability as one of its foundational languages. Not perfect accountability. Nobody gets this right every time. But the willingness to try, the willingness to look at yourself honestly when you have caused harm, the willingness to say, I was wrong, I am sorry, I want to do better. These are not extraordinary demands. They are the basic requirements of love. When a family member refuses to apologize, the wound cuts differently. Because somewhere inside us, we hold our family to a different standard. We expect more from them. We expect to be held by them, not dropped. We expect to be protected by them, not wounded. And when the people who were supposed to show us what healthy love looks like are the very ones teaching us to minimize our pain and normalize disrespect, something in our foundation begins to crack. Something in our sense of what we deserve begins to shift in the wrong direction. You do not have to accept this. You do not have to keep extending your heart to someone who uses it carelessly and then refuses to acknowledge the damage. You can love someone and still require accountability from them. You can want the relationship while refusing to accept its current terms. You can hold space for the possibility of change while protecting yourself from the reality of what is happening right now. And if someone consistently shows you that their ego is more important than your heart, you are allowed to adjust your proximity accordingly. Not in anger, not in revenge, but in wisdom, in self-respect, in the quiet, powerful decision to stop paying for something you are not receiving. Number 2, never tolerate someone who drains your peace. Peace is not a reward you receive after everything in your life is finally sorted out. It is not a destination you arrive at after solving every problem. Peace is a living, breathing, essential part of your inner landscape. It is the place within you where clarity grows, where your best thinking happens, where your intuition speaks, where your deepest sense of self is held. And when someone is consistently, repeatedly, invasively draining that peace, they are not simply making your life more difficult. They are attacking the very place from which your life is built. There are people who carry storms inside them, not because they are evil, not because they wake up each morning deciding to disrupt everything around them, but because they have not done the work of addressing their own internal chaos. And unaddressed internal chaos has to go somewhere. It expands outward. It fills every room they enter. It colors every conversation they have. And the people who are closest to them, the people who love them, the people who want to help them, become the primary recipients of that overflow. These are the people who drain your peace. They may not be malicious. They may genuinely love you. but their love structured in a way that costs you everything and replenishes you with nothing. They call you in crisis but never call to celebrate you. They come to you when they are drowning but are mysteriously unavailable when you reach out a hand. They expect you to hold them in their darkness without ever offering to sit with you in yours. And over time, without you quite knowing when it happened, the relationship has become an equation of constant output with almost no input. You are pouring and pouring and pouring, and the vessel never fills. Your body knows before your mind admits it. Your body knows when someone is draining your peace. You feel it in the tightening of your chest when their name appears on your phone. You feel it in the way your energy drops the moment they walk into the room. You feel it in the exhaustion that follows every interaction, an exhaustion that has nothing to do with physical tiredness and everything to do with the emotional labor of managing their chaos, absorbing their anxiety, and performing stability for someone who has no interest in developing their own. You were not made to be a repository for other people's unprocessed pain. You were not designed to sacrifice your inner sanctuary so that someone else can use it as a dumping ground. The kindness inside you, the compassion, the willingness to hold space for the people you love, these are beautiful qualities. But they become dangerous when they are not paired with discernment. When you give endlessly without boundaries, you do not become more loving. You become depleted. And a depleted person cannot love well. A depleted person cannot create well, think well, serve well, or live well. When your peace is consistently drained, every area of your life suffers. Your work, your creativity, your other relationships, your sense of purpose. Everything that requires your presence and your energy is diminished because your presence and your energy are being consumed by something that was never supposed to cost this much. Protecting your peace is not selfishness. It is stewardship. It is the responsible management of the most important resource you have. Because everything you are, everything you do, everything you build and create and offer to the world flows from that inner place of peace. And when that place is compromised, everything downstream from it is compromised too. You are allowed to love someone and still create distance from their chaos. You are allowed to care deeply about a person while choosing not to make their dysfunction your daily residence. You are allowed to say, I love you and I need space from this at the same time. Because protecting your peace is not abandonment. It is wisdom. It is the understanding that you cannot truly be there for anyone, including the people you love most, if you have allowed yourself to be emptied. Number 3, never tolerate manipulation. Manipulation is one of the most dangerous things a human being can do to another. Not because it always announces itself loudly, not because it always comes in the form of obvious deception or dramatic betrayal, but precisely because it is so often quiet, so often subtle, so often dressed in the language of love, concern, and care. Manipulation is the art of influencing another person's thoughts, feelings, and decisions, not through honesty, but through distortion. And when it comes from someone close to you, it is extraordinarily difficult to see clearly because you are seeing it through the lens of love and trust that you have already extended to them. A manipulative person does not ask you directly for what they want. Instead, they arrange the emotional landscape around you until you arrive at the conclusion they were guiding you toward, believing the entire time that the decision was your own. They use guilt to steer you away from your own needs. They use fear to keep you compliant and close. They use your love for them as a lever against you, pulling it at strategic moments to produce the responses they are looking for. They are skilled at making you feel responsible for their emotions, their choices, their happiness, their pain. And because you love them, because you genuinely do not want to hurt them, you respond to that manufactured responsibility with accommodation, with sacrifice, with the slow surrender of your own truth in service of keeping their peace. But here is what manipulation always costs you in the end. It costs you your clarity. Because manipulation, by its very nature, works by distorting your perception of reality. It makes you doubt your own instincts. It makes you question your own memory. It makes you feel that perhaps the person who is causing your pain is actually the victim, and you are somehow the one who has wronged them. And when your internal compass has been sufficiently confused, when you can no longer trust your own feelings and perceptions, you become entirely dependent on the manipulator to tell you what is real, which is precisely where they wanted you all along. Manipulation does not take a holiday when it comes from family. In fact, It often intensifies within family relationships because the emotional bonds are deeper, the history is longer, and the leverage available to the manipulator is richer. A parent who says, after everything I have done for you, the very least you can do is this. A sibling who creates drama every time you try to set a limit, ensuring that the cost of your boundary is always higher than the cost of simply complying. A partner who alternates between warmth and coldness in a pattern so unpredictable that you find yourself constantly working to maintain the warmth and prevent the cold. These are all forms of manipulation, and none of them should be tolerated regardless of who they come from. The moment you recognize manipulation, you have a choice. You can continue to respond to it, dancing the dance that has been choreographed for you, or you can stop. Simply stop. Not with anger or drama, but with quiet, grounded clarity. No, I will not be doing that. No, I do not accept that framing. No, I am not responsible for that outcome. Because when you stop responding to manipulation, when you refuse to be moved by the guilt and the fear and the emotional engineering, the game has nowhere to go. And the manipulator must decide whether they are willing to engage with you honestly or whether the relationship only works when they are in control. That is an important moment, and the answer they give you will tell you everything you need to know about the future of that relationship. Number 4, never tolerate disrespect. Respect is not an extraordinary request. It is the minimum requirement for any human interaction that can honestly be called a relationship. It is the baseline, the floor below which nothing should be permitted to fall. And yet there are people, many of them, who walk through their closest relationships with a casual disregard for the dignity of the people they claim to love, who speak to their partners, their children, their siblings with a contempt they would never direct at a stranger on the street, who dismiss, belittle, mock, and demean as if the familiarity of the relationship grants them permission to abandon the basic courtesy of human decency. Disrespect takes many forms, and it is important to be able to recognize all of them. There is the obvious disrespect of harsh words, insults, name-calling, the use of language designed to wound and humiliate. But there is also the quieter, more insidious disrespect of dismissal. The partner who rolls their eyes when you speak, the parent who talks over you in every conversation, the sibling who discounts your achievements with a casual remark that carries years of comparison and competition underneath it. The family member who has never once, in your entire shared history, asked you a genuine question about your life, because the depth of their self-absorption leaves no room for genuine curiosity about you. All of these are disrespect, and all of them are unacceptable. Not because you are fragile, not because you cannot handle difficulty or disagreement or imperfect communication, but because disrespect, when consistently tolerated, does not stay at the level at which it begins. It expands. It tests the edges of what you will accept, and when it finds that the edges keep moving, when it discovers that there is always a little more room for it to grow, it grows. And what began as the occasional dismissive comment gradually becomes the entire texture of how you are treated in that relationship. Tolerating disrespect also changes something inside you over time. It teaches you, at a level deeper than conscious thought, that you are not worth respectful treatment, that the people who know you best do not need to maintain the basic dignity of human decency with you. And you carry that lesson out of the relationship and into the rest of your life. You begin to accept disrespect from other people too, because somewhere in your formation it became the norm. Because the people who were supposed to model respect to you were modeling something else entirely. You are allowed to name disrespect when you experience it. You are allowed to say, that is not how you speak to me, and mean it. You are allowed to remove yourself from spaces where your dignity is not honored. Not in anger, not in retaliation, but in the calm, firm knowledge that your worth does not fluctuate based on someone else's inability to recognize it. And when someone consistently refuses to treat you with basic respect, when your limits are met with mockery or dismissal, you have the right to decide that this relationship, in its current form, no longer has a place in your life. Number 5, never tolerate emotional chaos. There is a difference between someone going through a difficult season and someone who lives permanently in dysfunction. There is a difference between a person who is struggling and reaching for help and a person who is drowning and pulling everyone nearby down with them without any genuine intention of learning to swim. Both may need compassion, but only one of them is safe for you to be close to. Emotional chaos as a pattern, as a consistent recurring feature of someone's life and interactions, is exhausting. It keeps everyone around it in a state of perpetual alertness. You never quite know what mood will greet you. You never know which version of this person will show up today. Will it be the charming, warm, present version or the explosive, volatile, unpredictable version? And so you live in a constant low level of tension, always scanning, always adjusting, always managing, always preparing for the storm that might be just around the corner. This kind of environment is incompatible with growth. It is incompatible with peace. It is incompatible with the kind of deep, settled, grounded inner life that allows you to pursue your purpose with full attention and full energy. Because emotional chaos demands your attention. It pulls your focus away from what you are building and toward what is constantly breaking. It distracts you from your dreams by flooding your mental and emotional space with its noise. You are allowed to step back from emotional chaos even when the person creating it is someone you love. Loving someone does not obligate you to drown alongside them. Supporting someone does not mean making their instability your permanent residence. You can hold space for someone's healing from a distance. You can pray for them, wish them well, even remain open to a different kind of relationship if genuine change occurs, while still choosing not to live inside their storm. Your peace is not a sacrifice you owe to other people's dysfunction. Your stability is not a resource to be spent managing the chaos of people who have no interest in addressing its source. And the more clearly you understand this, the more easily you will be able to distinguish between the relationships that are worth the difficulty they bring and the ones that are simply costly without being constructive, without being redemptive, without moving in any direction except the one that keeps you stuck. Number 6, never tolerate guilt-based control. Of all the toxic behaviors we have spoken about today, guilt-based control may be the most quietly devastating. Because guilt, unlike anger or manipulation or disrespect, does not always feel like an attack. It often feels like love. It feels like concern. It feels like the reasonable expectation of a person who cares about you and is trying to communicate their hurt. And because it wears the face of emotion rather than the face of aggression, it is far easier to mistake for something harmless, even something justified. But guilt used as a tool of control is not love. It is a leash. It is the strategic deployment of your own compassion against you. It is someone using their pain, real or performed, to keep you tethered to their expectations, to keep you available, to keep you compliant, to keep you from choosing yourself because doing so feels like choosing against them. And every time you respond to that guilt, every time you abandon your own needs or your own boundaries or your own truth because someone made you feel responsible for their feelings, you reinforce the chain. You teach them that the strategy works, and they use it again. Guilt-based control often sounds like love and sacrifice wrapped in the language of hurt. I did everything for you, and this is how you repay me. After all I have been through, I cannot believe you would do this. If you really love me, you would not need to set limits with me. These statements are not expressions of healthy love. They are the architecture of control. They are designed to make you feel that your growth, your independence, your choices, your becoming, are acts of cruelty toward the person wielding them. And when you believe that, when you internalize the idea that your freedom costs someone else their happiness, you stop reaching for freedom at all. But let me offer you this. You are not responsible for other people's emotions. You are not responsible for managing their feelings, their reactions, their disappointment at your growth. You can be compassionate about how your choices affect others while still making those choices. You can be gentle with someone's pain while still refusing to be governed by it. Because when you stop responding to guilt as a means of control, when you begin to act from your own values and your own truth rather than from the fear of someone else's displeasure, something extraordinary happens. You begin to find out who you actually are, what you actually want, what you are actually capable of when your energy is no longer consumed by the labor of managing someone else's emotional demands. And now let me bring all of this together. Because the 6 behaviors we have spoken about today, the refusal to apologize, the draining of your peace, the use of manipulation, the tolerance of disrespect, the endurance of emotional chaos, and the acceptance of guilt-based control, these are not six separate problems. They are six expressions of the same underlying reality. The reality that some relationships, regardless of the love that may exist within them, are not structured in a way that honors your worth, that allows you to grow, that supports your becoming, that treats your spirit with the care it deserves. And recognizing this is not a betrayal, it is a breakthrough. It is the moment you stop confusing endurance with loyalty. Stop confusing suffering with love. Stop confusing the length of a relationship with its health. Because a relationship can be decades old and still be damaging. It can carry the weight of shared history and still be corrosive. It can belong to a person who loves you genuinely and still be structured in a way that is slowly but surely diminishing you. Some people will accuse you of being cold when you begin to set limits. They will say you have changed, as if changing were something to apologize for. They will call you selfish for protecting what is yours to protect. But let me tell you something with absolute clarity. The people who are most disturbed by your limits are almost always the ones who were most comfortable benefiting from your lack of them. Their discomfort is not evidence that you are wrong. It is evidence that something has shifted. And shifts, especially the ones toward health and wholeness, always disturb the people who preferred you exactly as you were. You are not losing people when you refuse to tolerate what harms you. You are gaining yourself. You are gaining the clarity of a mind no longer fogged by manipulation, the peace of a spirit no longer battered by chaos, the confidence of a heart that has finally decided it is worth protecting. You do not owe anyone the destruction of your well-being. You do not owe anyone the sacrifice of your sanity. You do not owe anyone the dimming of the light that lives inside you. You owe yourself honesty. You owe yourself safety. You owe yourself the dignity of relationships that reflect your worth and mirror your growth and hold your heart with genuine care. Forgiveness and access are two entirely different things. You can forgive someone completely, fully, without reservation, and still not grant them continued access to your life. Forgiveness is the gift you give yourself so that bitterness does not take root in you. But access is a privilege that must be earned through demonstrated respect, consistent accountability, and genuine change. And anyone who refuses to earn it, who expects your presence without offering the behavior that deserves it, has made a choice. And you are allowed to respond to that choice with wisdom. You can love people from a distance. You can wish someone well without wishing them close. You can release a relationship without releasing the love that once made it real. Letting go does not require hatred or anger or the complete erasure of everything the relationship was. It simply requires the honesty to say, what this relationship is now is no longer something I can afford to keep. Not because I am hard, not because I do not care, but because I care too much about the person I am becoming to keep allowing what is hurting me to live in the center of my life. Your life is a garden. Read that carefully and let it settle. Your life is a garden, and gardens only flourish when the conditions are right, when the soil is healthy, when the light can get in, when the things that are growing are tended with care, and when the weeds are addressed, not hated, not cursed, not attacked in rage, but clearly and consistently removed from the space where beauty is trying to grow. Because weeds do not just occupy space. They consume the nutrients that were meant for the things you are intentionally cultivating. They compete with your growth. They take what was intended for your flourishing and redirect it toward their own survival. The toxic behaviors in your life are the weeds, and the garden of your life deserves better. Your dreams deserve to grow without being strangled by dysfunction. Your peace deserves to deepen without being invaded by chaos. Your love deserves to be expressed in relationships that receive it gratefully and return it genuinely. Your spirit deserves to expand into the fullness of everything it was created to become without being pressed down by the weight of what other people refuse to address in themselves. So let this be your moment, not a moment of anger or bitterness or dramatic departure, but a moment of quiet, powerful truth. A moment where you look honestly at the behaviors you have been tolerating and ask yourself a simple, essential question. Is what I am allowing in my life making me more of who I am meant to be or less? Is it adding to my story or subtracting from it? Is it building the life I was made for or dismantling it one small wound at a time? And whatever you find when you answer that question honestly, Whatever it reveals about the relationships and dynamics and patterns you have been living inside, let that answer be the beginning of something new. Let it be the first page of a chapter in which you choose yourself. Not selfishly, not arrogantly, not without compassion for the people you love, but truly, fully, and unapologetically. Because you were not born to live in the shadow of what diminishes you. You were not created to spend your one precious life absorbing the chaos, the manipulation, the disrespect, and the control of people who refuse to grow. You were meant to rise. You were meant to breathe freely. You were meant to love and be loved in ways that feel like sunlight rather than shadow, in ways that lift you rather than lower you, in ways that honor the extraordinary, irreplaceable, deeply worthy human being that you actually are. And the moment you decide to honor that truth, the moment you make it the standard by which you measure everything you allow into your life, something begins to shift. Something begins to open. The right people begin to appear. The right opportunities begin to emerge. The right experiences begin to find you. Because when you stop filling every corner of your life with what drains you, there is finally space for what nourishes you. And in that space, in that beautiful, hard-won, carefully protected space, you can begin at last to build the life you were always meant to have.